Well, this is going to be great.
Welcome to the White House Pod with David A.R. White.
Roger, I am so excited for this guest that we have today.
Well, you know, she's royalty, Hollywood royalty.
She is royalty right here. Listeners, if you are listening, we have Hollywood royalty sitting to my right. She has the book. Is this the... All right, I have about 30 pages to introduce Donelle. I mean, this is amazing, Roger. Okay, so sum this up for me. Otherwise, I don't want to.
Well, no problem. I can do it. I can do this very easily. She's the president and founder of the Hollywood Museum, celebrating its 20th year this year. She's the past chair of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, the past president of the Hollywood Historic Trust that controls the Hollywood Walk of Fame. She's been appointed by the governor for several boards across the state, and she is on the national board of the Smithsonian.
Okay. Donelle, welcome to. Thank you for being here.
Hey, David.
I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. I'm getting nervous. Donelle was a school teacher at one point in time. I feel like I could
we have to be really careful what we say.
Exactly. I could get smacked with the ruler. She's got a...
No, that was before my time. We were both students at that time, and we were both afraid of that.
That is true. The kids could be straightened out in different ways back then. All right, so what's going on with your shoes? You have unbelievable shoes on right now. Yes. Look at that. By the way, if you're listening, on Spotify, iHeart, and everywhere else, you're going to want to tune into YouTube where you can see these shoes. Donelle, so how long have we been wearing these type of shoes? You said what's their names again?
Well, this is from the great Betsy Johnson collection. Okay. But, I have got them from all sorts of people, Karl Lagerfeld, from Gucci, whatever, as long as it's a tennis shoe and it is comfortable, I'm wearing it. And I guess we could thank COVID for this. When we got out of our high heel stiletto shoes, let's be honest, and we got into really comfortable shoes. And it doesn't hurt that so many celebrities and government officials are wearing suits with tennis shoes.
It's true. Even sportscasters. But I don't know. Do you like that? Do you like watching? The thing I don't love about sportscasters is that those guys wearing the tennis shoes. I feel like they need yours don't look like just regular shoes, though. These look like they complement your outfit. They're cool. You look cool wearing these shoes.
Well, you're so nice to say that. And I do have to say, I love shoes and I love handbags, like all women. So it cannot be.
How many do we have at home?
Oh, I don't know.
Is it like over 100?
I don't know.
500.
That's the safe answer. I don't know.
I went to Prince's Museum in Minneapolis about 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah, have you been there?
I have.
Okay. It's right, there's shoes. When they have and they're all, it's like a museum of his shoes. I guess like 500 to 1,000 he had to have in there.
It was pretty impressive.
It's impressive. Like, do you have more shoes than him?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. All right. So, Donelle, are you from Los Angeles originally?
Shockingly, yes, I am. I was born and raised in L.A.
And what part?
In West L.A.
Okay. And were your parents at all in the film industry or in the industry, or were they what?
Oh, gosh, that's a really good question, David. So my mother was a school teacher till she had me.
Okay.
And, in those days, when a female school teacher, when she was pregnant and she started to show, then they would have discussions with the administration and with the school folks for the county. And when my mother started to show, she had to take a leave of absence with me. But then she had me, and she decided that all of a sudden, why should she waste her time with other children? She should spend all of her time teaching her only child.
Were you... Okay.
So she never went back to teaching professionally.
And was your father...
Well, my father taught school for a moment, and there's a joke there. My mother was a school teacher. My father was a school teacher.
Yeah.
And I became a school teacher.
And right out of... Did you want to be a school teacher originally?
No.
How did you fall into it? Because of a family?
No, I had the love of what I wanted to teach, and I had great friends of the family, the people who own the school that I graduated from, the Lycée Français de Los Angeles, the French school here in LA. And all of a sudden, they needed to have a teacher teach this one subject because the teacher that had been there for 20 plus years was not coming back. So I said, sure, I'll step in. I'll have some fun, because many of these students, were just maybe, well, some of them were 10 years younger than me. Some of them were only 5 years younger than me. And I remember them when we all used to walk 2 by 2 to our classrooms in our uniforms, and now I was going to be the school teacher. How much fun could that be?
In high school, right? You were a high school teacher?
Yes.
For like a specific grade, or were you
for
teaching
a specific
all grades?
class.
Oh, got it. Okay.
So now the question is, David, can you guess what it was that I taught?
French?
No. But
No?
No.
Sounded like French.
Yes. Well, I had to teach the class in French, but it was music
History?
appreciation.
Okay. Well, that makes complete
Coming
sense.
into Hosea
yes,
Turvey.
Yes.
But
Did this book come out already? No, I'm
just
skipping
come
way
out.
too far
Yeah,
ahead of
it's
this.
just
but-
come out, and we're really thrilled about it.
Okay. We should talk. We have to talk about the book. Let's work our way to the book, though, for a second. So, okay, so you're a school teacher for how long, then?
Well, I taught for 5 years while I was getting my MBA and getting my feet wet in my real profession and career.
And that was real estate, right? You went into
Yes.
real estate. Then,
Yes.
did you know that you wanted to do real estate, or like what? This is like in the prime of Hollywood too, I would imagine, right? West LA. What was West LA like in those years? Is it like it is today? I can't imagine it is.
I don't know that it was. I specialized in the West Side. So, anything west of the Sunset Strip, Doheny, Beverly Hills, Brentwood, Bel Air, Santa Monica, all the upper end neighborhoods.
Was that hard to get into? I would imagine everybody would want to sell celebrities' houses or be in those areas
Well,
of all
that's a great
things.
question. And,
Like-
it's kind of it's a two-pronged type of a thing, because everyone wanted to get into it because of the expense of the real estate. Even, 30, 40 years ago, it still was expensive for its time. So there's that element. Gee, I don't have to sell so many houses. I can make a really good commission, I don't have to work as hard. Well, that's a myth, because you have to work even harder. And then the thing about, selling for celebrities, well, how are you going to get into that? You really can't unless you are one yourself or you know someone. I was very fortunate. I knew business managers and real estate attorneys for the celebrities. One by one, as I worked with one, I was referred to another, because I was relatively professional in my career, and I was wanting to do the best for my client and then move on to my next client. I didn't need to make friends. Now with the museum, everybody's a friend, but once upon a time, it wasn't that way.
How did you? Okay, so who was your first person that you knew that you to kind of bring you into that world?
Well, I had a professor when I was getting my MBA who was an attorney, a real estate attorney. And so he liked the way that I was debating in class and giving the responses. And he said, I've got a project for you. It's probably just because, hey, you can get cheap student labor to figure it out. But I worked my way through this problem for him and put out several different thought processes for him, for when he wanted to follow. And he liked the way that worked. And so I worked with him on several of his clients, and then I graduated to now working several of his clients who were celebrities, and then the business managers, and then from then on it was just referrals, one after the next.
Right. And when people, there's so many people who want to get into real estate today. Right. Every time I turn around, there's another person passing a real estate exam. I feel like I have like 5 new people that I meet in a week, or 10, whatever. There's 5 people that want to go into real estate that I meet every week.
For sure.
And I'm not even pursuing anything to do with real estate. So what is now looking back, because it's been so many years, what advice would you give them for everything that you went through? And obviously you excelled massively at real estate, which we haven't even touched on, but how did you, what's the advice that you give them? Is it the work hard, the be friendly, you don't have to make a million friends? Like what?
Well, it's an interesting thing because I do remember years ago, like in the 80s and in the 90s. I mean, I have to tell you, when I was just starting out and I was barely an adult at that moment, and I was just in shock because my ex was into classic cars, and he had just lots of classic cars, and we used to just giggle. The used car salesman and the real estate agent, we were the most popular people at every cocktail party. Someone always had a question about an old car. Where can I find one? How can I sell one? And someone was always asking me, what do I do? My roof is leaking. I need to add another bedroom. Do you have another house I could look at? Or should I just go ahead and remodel? What's the best way to do this? And I realized I thought we were just very boring, hardworking people, but I guess we were in the right careers. Yeah.
Yeah. You became fascinating. I mean, it's not like you weren't fascinating before, but I mean,
David, you're so sweet.
Well, you've always been fascinating, Donelle. But I mean, like, what?
And you heard it here.
Did it at one point in time? Did it ever switch to where you could go into a cocktail party or whatever and be like the talk of? I'm so fascinated of knowing, what do you know about, what am I supposed to do about my house? What am I supposed to do about, the cars, whatever.
I know.
You weren't talking about cars.
And that's what's interesting because that's what happens. That's exactly what happens.
Have you always been super cool is my point. Is what I'm trying to
course.
Okay, like even in high school, okay, we'll skip that.
No, but in high school, actually,
what I'm
I was a very serious individual. I'm less serious today than I was when I was in my teens.
You do
interesting perception.
Yes, but you carry this aura of great wisdom and being a legend just when you walk in the room, even if I didn't know anything about you.
Oh, aren't you sweet, David?
It's true, Roger.
But David does
Absolutely.
the same thing too. Everyone wants to know who David A.R. White is. So come on.
Okay, Donelle. So how long do we stay in real estate before you go into your next venture?
I'm still in real estate. I do it for myself.
Okay. How many years were you
Actively,
like it was your full time?
probably about 30 years.
Wow.
But everything dovetails each other. Something never stops and then something starts. So at one point in time, I was doing 4 things at once. You know how that works. You do.
Was it more houses or was it more like apartments or?
Oh, listen to you! Wow, what a pro!
But I have no interest in being a real estate agent. Never have. Don't really know very much about it.
So for me, it was residential and commercial.
Okay, both. Did you get into residential first or commercial?
I knew more about commercial to begin with, but I started making inroads and having recognition because of residential. Isn't that interesting?
Well, I would imagine it was part of your clientele, right?
I think so. I think that's what it really was. And I love to spec houses. I just got such a kick out of that. That was.
Well, okay. So when you think about movie stars, then can you tell us about some of any good stories about the? Because I don't know, I don't know, Roger. I'm in between Roger over here, Mr. Giant PR guy, and Donelle, and I don't know exactly what I can ask, but I really want to ask, and I think everybody wants to know. So, what was the hardest movie star that you were selling to?
Well, now
without
I can't
entering names, right?
I can't tell you. That's like asking a mom, who her worst child was most
you
misbehaved.
You can't say their name, but you could say like what was so hard about selling to movie stars. First of all,
well,
are they difficult? Are they high maintenance? Is it like because we've had a few movie stars on our set.
I know you
quite
have.
a lot, actually.
And with your career and your profession, you run into them. You trip over them every minute of every hour of every day. So now that we've got that stated, I want to tell you that sometimes there is some issues, but I think a lot of it is brought out maybe just because they don't have the time. They think they know what they want, but there's so many other issues that are pulling and tugging at them at the same time. And they're so used to being surrounded by people who just do for them.
Yes.
And so gone then is that ability to be able to, as I'm struggling for the words, gone is the ability to find those words to express themselves. And sometimes there's frustration. Sometimes they don't have enough time. Sometimes they find it right off the bat. And it's me who has said to them, don't be so quick to pick. Let's look at 20 more houses first, then tell me what you like, you know? So it's a give and a take. It's a push and a pull.
Yeah, well, trying to get a movie star to go look at 20 houses, I think, would be really hard.
Oh, I don't know. I did it with Michael Jackson. We would look at real estate all the time. So, and I can say that because sadly he's passed. But
did he move a lot? He moved a lot, right?
Yes, he did.
Yeah, and it just was like he played in a house for a minute, and then it was like, okay, I got to have a new house.
Sometimes I need an additional house, not necessarily a new house.
Interesting. You know. That's interesting. How many houses did Michael Jackson have?
I don't know. I'd have to think about that.
What was with Michael Jackson is I'm a big fan of Michael Jackson. What was your favorite Michael Jackson song? Do you have one?
No.
Did you like his music?
I did.
As being as a musician?
I did. I did like it, and I did enjoy with him, but I didn't have a favorite. I just liked it all.
Yeah. You are like just, I mean, no wonder you and Roger are friends. It's like everything out of your mouth is like completely correct. He's trying to build a filter into my mouth. I don't know that it's working very well, but he's working on it with me. Okay, so you sell houses to the. How do you remember these different houses that you with the stars? Do you have pictures with them? Are they in your office? Do you how many houses have you sold? Do you know how many houses you've sold?
Hundreds.
Thousands? I bet.
No,
it's
I don't
thousands.
know about thousands, but hundreds.
And any of the do you have like a favorite top 5 houses you've ever sold in your life?
Of course, and they're all homes that I've spec'd. So there you go.
Oh, what does that mean?
Homes that I would, purchase, fix up, remodel, repair, tear down part of them, add on to them, whatever, and then I would sell them. It's like they call them flipping today.
Yeah. Okay. What point in time? 20 years into this museum, right? That we're the Hollywood Museum. How did this come about? How did you get the idea? What was there a Hollywood Museum? When I think about the Hollywood Museum, I would have thought it would have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years because it's so iconic.
It should have been.
And where did you get the first thought to say, I'm going to... It wasn't before you, right? You created the Hollywood Museum.
I did. Yes.
Which is incredible. That's like, it's like landmark, like should have been here forever. How did Donelle wake up one day and go, why in the world do we not have a Hollywood Museum?
Insanity. Insanity is what caused me to want to do this. Actually, I wanted to give something back to the community. Being in the real estate industry and working with so many different celebrities in front of the camera, behind the camera. And it was a good living for me, and it gave me a great life and allowed me to spec houses, do other deals, and move on and do many different forms of business. I decided that I wanted to do something that people would enjoy seeing, and the school teacher in me came out when I did the study. Well, what is it that Los Angeles is best known for? Well, the best export is Hollywood. All things Hollywood, whether it's television or films. And so for me, it was a fun way then to now start to investigate. How could we do this? How could we make locals enjoy something that's right in their own backyard, but now they only have to go one place and kind of learn about the history of it? And tourists, my gosh, tourists come from all over the world in search of Hollywood. In search of Hollywood from like its humble beginnings till today.
Yeah.
And when I first started out doing and looking for this, which was in the early 90s, I have to say, there was no place other than a few tourist traps on Hollywood Boulevard. And I thought, oh, this is incredible. How is this possible that it doesn't exist? So I look at it and I think, well, we'll just get started and do that.
How okay? And were you always in the same building? It's the Max. What's the name of the?
Oh, now come on, David. Any woman that you have gone out with wears makeup, and it's the Max Factor makeup studio.
Yes.
That is now the Hollywood Museum. It's the historic Max Factor building, and it is a national, as well as state and local landmark building, and we won the State of California Preservation Award for restoring the building back to its look from the 1930s.
How long did it take to find a building that you were going to say, like, I could put the museum here, or did you start somewhere else?
Oh, no. I knew it had to be on Hollywood Boulevard. So starting somewhere else, it was just like in Hollywood Boulevard area. And in the early 90s, my gosh, you could have shot a cannon down Hollywood Boulevard and you would have not had one fatality. You wouldn't have hit one person. There was very little going on there. There was, there was a lot of prostitution, there was drugs, and there was runaways.
I think what you meant to say was there was very little good going on there.
Okay, we can say that. And not too much.
They still had a lot going on.
Yeah. They had a lot going on,
right, but not a lot of tourists.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh my gosh. And I found this fabulous old building when every storefront literally was for sale or for lease. And I found this great old building that was one building off of Hollywood Boulevard on Highland, the Max Factor Makeup Studio. And of course it wasn't for sale because, we women, we like a good challenge every so often, like every hour on the hour. And so this was my challenge to figure out who owned the Max Factor building and how could I get them to sell it to me? Well, it turned out to be Procter & Gamble, the soap kings from, they're this international industry, this corporation. And it took a moment to get their attention, and then they thought I was crazy. You know how that works.
Were they still using it at the time?
Well, interestingly enough, this was part of the chattel. This was part of what Procter & Gamble landed up with when they bought the Max Factor Cosmetics company, because the family sold the building and the company and everything that had to do with Max Factor in the 70s. And Norton Simon, who was married to the great actress Jennifer Jones, he bought it for her birthday present. Now, Norton Simon was a well-known philanthropist who had a museum in Pasadena here. And so he thought, oh, that'll be a lovely birthday present for my wife. And from then on it went, and I don't remember the exact order, but it was either Beatrice Foods, Playtex, Revlon, all these other Fortune 500 companies landed up owning it before Procter & Gamble came along.
Wow.
And so Procter & Gamble owned all the real estate, all the factories, and all the makeup, and the manufacturing of the makeup. So I had to talk them out of that building.
While it was still in use. Wow. How long did that take from start to first conversation? Like 2 years, 3 years?
It probably took just under 4 years.
Wow. And was it just you calling there, or did you have Roger to call? Was Roger calling?
No. Nope.
No, I was young and
had energy enough to pick up the phone.
I was having fun with it. What can I say?
Okay, so in the middle of that, while you're trying to secure the building, had you started acquiring the different the different like exhibits?
Well, that's a great question, actually. You would think possibly yes, but the answer was no. Because I knew I had so much refurbishment and restoration of this building that was needed. And it took almost 9 years because I had to battle every city government agency and all these historical societies who, because of my background, thought, oh, she's just going to demolish that building, or she's just going to cut it up and she's going to sell it off because that's, she's in real estate. But the reality was I wanted to do something, as we talked about, give something back to the community. So I wanted to make a showplace out of this building, because if these walls could talk, as we just said, just that alone would be interesting to know who had been in that building. All these great movie stars from Once Upon a Time, these classic stars, how they got their looks. this was before there was such thing as liposuction and plastic surgery. Max Factor, in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even the early 70s, he was making women into glamorous individuals. They'd walk in looking like you and me and walk out looking like silver screen gods and goddesses. So Max Factor really was well known. He was considered the king of Hollywood makeup, and he, in fact, I have to say why this ties in so well was he was the first manufacturer of a product that used movie stars to sell his items and his products.
Brilliant. Did you ever meet him?
Well, I met not him nor his son, but I met the son's brothers, because Max Factor was killed sadly right out in front of the building, crossing the street in the 30s.
Wow.
And his son died later on, but I met the youngest son. And in fact, he gave me Max Factor's makeup case. And so it's on display at the museum today, complete with mohair mohair mustaches. And forget, the technology.
Do you have a full exhibit for Max Factor there?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And the world-famous makeup rooms where Marilyn Monroe became a blonde, a brunette's only room, a brunette's only room, which I never knew what it was till I bought the building. And then, of course, the redhead's only room where Lucille Ball became a redhead.
All right. So recently we've had the Transformers exhibit that just opened. I sadly was not able to attend that. Roger was like, couldn't even believe that. I would miss that. I did attend the one before, Abbott and Costello
Yes,
one.
you did.
And
we
that
had fun
one was
at that
fascinating.
One. Yeah.
I thought that one was really fascinating. I was a big fan of them. So this Transformer exhibit, how often do you open an exhibit? It seems like you have so many exhibits in the Hollywood Museum. And by the way, guys, if you've never been there, it's fascinating. And you really have brought something to Hollywood that I think didn't exist before you came up with it, which
well,
is
I thank you for
crazy.
saying that. I thank you for saying it. It's, done out of love. And there's so many people who share that love for old Hollywood and for seeing how Hollywood got to where it is today. Because it's not like there was nothing and then all of a sudden there's 2023. There's a lot that went on. More than 100 years before that. And so to get to where it is today, we've had such fun being able to document it and show it. But as we were saying, because so many locals love the museum, we have to change it up on a pretty regular basis. And professionals love the museum as well as tourists. So for us, I mean, I don't want to say that every 2 months we open a new exhibit, but I think every couple of months we open a new exhibit. It's quite something. The fun part is, how do the exhibits get there? Because last night you missed it, but we have 3 of the Transformer cars that are on our 3rd floor inside of the building. And everyone says, well, how does that happen?
Does that elevator actually take them up? I mean, that's what I hear.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes, that elevator holds 13,000 pounds. And we've even had Marilyn Monroe's limousine in it, the Ectomobile from Ghostbusters. That's how it got on the 2nd floor, because it goes in there. We've had Back to the Future cars, all the time machines, actually one from each of the films, including Marty McFly's truck when he was 16 years old that his dad gave him. We've had Gina Harlow's Duesenberg, 16-cylinder Duesenberg. And some of the cars, there's only 2 or 3 inches from the back bumper to the back wall of the freight elevator, or 1 or 2 inches to the front wall when the doors slam down shut.
It's amazing how they get up there. I every time I'm there, I'm amazed at the amount also of memorabilia that you have from the different movies is fascinating.
Well, I thank you for saying that, David. We've had such fun creating these exhibits, and for me, this will probably be the 17th time I've said this, being an ex-school teacher.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a Hollywood legend, but okay.
Oh, wow. Look at this. Roger.
Yes.
It's the Roger, I mean, yes, agreed.
But, for me, the fun of it was figuring out how could I educate everyone who comes into the museum. And it harkened back to when I was teaching school, that all-important class of music appreciation in French. How could I get my kids to be interested about Ludwig van Beethoven or Mozart or Johann Sebastian Bach? Well, there's some interesting things, and so I would look for those, like how many cups of coffee did Johann Sebastian Bach drink a day for him to be able to be so prolific in his writing, How many affairs did Mozart have, And just saying one sentence like that, it was like, you caught the kids' attention, and from that moment on, for the next 55 minutes of class,
you had them.
Oh, boy, did you have them. And so for me, and I still see some of these kids today, which is really fun, and several of them are actually well-known actors today. They always laugh about this. And when they come to the museum, they see right away, oh, that's Miss Dadigan's hand at work, because it's about the great exhibits that you see, but also the great text and information panels that you can read about.
Yeah, that is amazing. Actually, I found myself glued to them. They're fascinating. My son is 17, and he is in his film class in high school. And he told me last night he had to watch The Sound of Music. And I was like, oh, okay.
How do you do?
Well, I mean, they watched 20 minutes in there, and then that was their homework, is to finish it. So somehow they knew it was on HBO. And then they're like, okay, you're going to go home and now you're going to watch that. But they're the ones that need to be going to the Hollywood Museum. How many kids, how many teens, do you get high schools coming in, shipping people in all the time?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And we love that. We just love that because they come in, they're standing in this historic lobby. They learn about the importance of Max Factor and this building. And not only is it a nationally registered landmark because it's the best example of Hollywood Regency-style Art Deco, but they learn about the cultural significance, and what would that be? Because it's in this very building where Max Factor somehow found a way. He found this way to make women like myself professionals, but I don't hoof or dance on stage or in front of a camera. But, in those days, in the 30s, it would be a shopkeeper, an assistant, a school teacher, someone who worked for a charity. He made it okay for us women to wear makeup as long as it was prudently applied. Well, all these young teenagers today who love to wear makeup, they're just giggling because they can't believe that women maybe went around without wearing makeup or only wore just a little bit, and that was good enough. And it was Max Factor who sort of changed that whole image to have women of all ages and from all professions be able to wear makeup. And what's so wonderful is that everyone enjoyed their looks.
Yeah, it's my daughter's into that makeup, and being a teenager is has no idea how has Hollywood shifted, because Hollywood today in 2023 isn't really like it was even when I got to town in the 90s. It seemed like there was much more of appreciation for the historical aspect of it. Because I grew up on it. I grew up, I only had two and a half channels as a kid in the middle of nowhere in Kansas. And I was glued, though, to what Hollywood represented, which is what I think also struck the fire in me to move here when I was 19. So I'm curious of how you've had the museum now 20 years, so you've seen thoughts on all of these aspects of.
Well, it's interesting. Well, David, it's really interesting.
Because Hollywood changes every year.
Yes, and that's what's so interesting about this, what you touched on, because the reality is that the average person, like you and me, we come because we love anything of entertainment, television, film, whatever it is. Well, the average person is just like us. This is a form of entertainment for them. They love everything Hollywood. And as a result, they're coming to see, how did it get started? What were the stops and starts along the way? What changed culturally? And our museum, the Hollywood Museum, in the historic Max Factor building, we give all of our visitors that opportunity to see how the industry has changed over the last 100 years. But what I think is most interesting is that executives along the way have not really spent the time to learn about that past. It's only about the bottom line today. And can we have
Much
a franchise?
more corporate.
Oh, very much so. And of course, just think about it. I mean, who owns a lot of these studios? You know, there are larger conglomerates that own these studios today. Once upon a time, the studios were started and owned by moguls that came here from Europe, you know. And so it was a family-owned and operated business at the most.
Yeah, that is. I mean, that's a big why it would be different, no doubt. Okay, all right. So we have to talk about this book here, From Hollywood to the
You
World.
have to, because Roger is going to be, you know.
Well, exactly. Tell us about this. When did it come out? It's new, right?
Yes.
From Hollywood to the World.
Well,
What
it's
a
kind
cool
of
name.
exciting.
What a cool title.
I know. You know, I mean, I have to show you this. And I did not come up with this title. Sony Classical came up with this title. And they put this together, and it's a book with 16 CDs, 8 in front and 8 in the back.
Okay, that's cool.
And the book itself is just extraordinary, with photographs all along of my godfather's career. Oh, here's one with Frank Sinatra. Can you believe that? From the late 40s, sitting behind, we were at the Hollywood Bowl, sitting in the green room, chit-chatting before they went on stage together.
Has he been your godfather through your entire life?
Yes,
Okay.
from when I was a few years old.
Did you go to all of his concerts?
Well, that's a great question. My godfather concertized all over the world, and for decades he had 150 to 200 concerts a year worldwide. He flew his own plane. He flew his orchestra with him.
How big was his plane to
Big.
put his orchestra in there?
I know,
Wow.
big. And
I've never heard of that. I've never heard of a.
Well-
you always hear buses, like Randy Travis and Elizabeth Travis were our partners for years. So, you know, they did 152 shows a year, and they would
well,
always have their
that's
buses.
different. The buses, yes. But
Yes.
my godfather, classical music, it was international.
But
he
an
was
orchestra
Spanish, yes.
on a plane.
Yes, he was Spanish by birth, so I mean, you know, he was always going back to Europe.
Okay.
And so I think it's kind of fun when you think about it, because he had his own groupies. He was like one of the original rock stars before there was rock and roll
What years
music.
are these?
So in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, it was just extraordinary. He passed away in 1980. And so as a child, I was so lucky to see him when he would come home between concerts. And I'd hear the wildest of stories, not understanding what it meant.
Yeah, because
No,
you just
it's-
grew up with it. So
Never understood it. I never, you know, I met so many different celebrities, whether they were directors, actors, actresses, famous musicians, conductors. I just knew them as uncle this, that, whatever. And years later, only when I took, I hit an old film class at UCLA, a classic film class at UCLA, when I was an undergraduate. And I thought, oh, that'll be an easy A. And all of a sudden, up on the screen read, directed by Jean Negulesco. And I thought, well, I know him. He lives 2 doors away from my godfather. That's right. Okay, I know who that guy is. Gee, I didn't realize he was such a big director, because he directed, I don't know, over 100 films. It was just like kind of crazy. Oh my God, Harry Cohn. I didn't like that man, but I know he was important, but I didn't know he owned a studio. Oh my gosh.
are you 18 when you're figuring this out? Like you're in college?
Yes, I was in college
Okay,
finally.
okay.
But I finally figured this out. I
Wow.
did not know. So my godfather had this.
Your mom never told you this? By the way, Jose. Is Jose, is that how I
Yeah,
pronounce it?
uh-huh.
Yeah, is a big deal. for
Oh,
the
I knew
record.
he was a very big deal, but I didn't know who these other people were. He was a big deal because he was my godfather,
Okay.
you know, and he even had a motorcycle with a sidecar, if you want to have a laugh. But piloted his own planes, had his groupies, and we always laugh about this. You know, today groupies, we know what they throw up on stage,
Yeah.
but during my godfather's time in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s,
Yeah, what
you
was
know,
that?
scented handkerchiefs and flowers.
Oh,
That
it's a
was
little
very
more,
racy
a little
and
more
wild.
classy though. Flowers, throwing flowers up there. That's like and scented handkerchiefs.
But so
Did he
interesting.
collect them? Did he have
Oh,
like a room
yes.
of of handkerchiefs from all over
My
the world?
godmother had them all filed away. And when he passed away, I remember several of these women who were daughters of very important Hollywood icons came to the front door and wanting to see my godmother and ask if they could have the handkerchief back because they knew Jose had touched it.
Oh.
And now they wanted to get it back.
Wow. That had to make it interesting how many women came to the door.
I answered the doors, yes.
All right, so there is a Grammy-nominated buzz going on right
Yes.
now, right? When do we find this out? When do we find out if we are indeed nominated?
Roger, when do we find this out?
Roger, what's going on?
We're going to find out in November.
Okay.
And, she put this together with her and Michael Feinstein, who is...
Oh, the great singer and performer. We had such fun doing this. It was a project, a couple of years, like 2.5 years to put this together. But
I mean, this is like,
it.
this shows, I mean, this makes sense. Is this your first book to release? You've never released a book before.
No.
How's that possible? You could release like books about selling to stars, building the
Gotta wait
museum.
for them all to die.
How did... You could release your first book. I mean, I'm sure some of them have passed.
Yes. No time.
That is,
No
I
time.
think there's probably
But this was a passion project.
Yeah, this took 2 years to put together. And did we have who did you put it together with? Michael Feinstein.
Michael Feinstein, and then also Sony Classical.
Okay.
And we got the recordings from the RCA vaults, and they're from the 40s and 50s, and it's quite extraordinary. And we had to winnow it down to only 16 CDs.
How many recordings had he released?
Hundreds. And, I have to tell you, my godfather, Jose Iturbi, has his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame because he was the first musician to sell 1 million copies of a record. Now, you'd have thought it was Elvis Presley or the Beatles.
Yeah.
But it was Jose Iturbi.
What year?
In the early 50s, playing Chopin's Military Polonaise. Isn't that extraordinary?
It is extraordinary. Is that obviously that's got to be on the first? Is it on the first CD?
No, but it is there.
You got to find it out of the 16.
Oh, that's why you have to read it all.
Okay, so oh gosh, Roger always kind of creeps up on me and says
Isn't
like
that
3
how it
minutes.
works?
Like it's like
Yeah.
here you go. By the way, do you get this on every event? That doesn't Roger help?
I
with
get
the,
4 minutes. I get 3 minutes.
That's exactly what I get.
2 minutes, and then I get.
You've trained him. You've trained him now
1
to do
minute.
this to me because this is what he does to me. Thanks a lot. And does he kind of come up behind you, right, and kind of scare you with it?
Well, that was interesting because last night he sort of was out in the audience, just kind of looking at some people like.
Yeah, move it along. How long have you known Roger?
We were talking about that last night. Oh, now we've got 2
Well,
minutes.
I've been with Donelle for 6 years.
Okay, so Donelle, tell me, we only have 2 minutes apparently. I'm going to have you back for like the other 13 pages of your bio here. What?
Oh, you'll come visit me on my.
Well, you have a podcast?
I have a radio show.
A radio show?
Yes, on 790 AM KABC.
What's it called?
Hollywood's Hidden Treasures. What else?
Did you ever want to make a movie?
I don't have time.
That is true. That is true. How do you? I mean, just as okay, I got 2 minutes. How?
You're lucky. It's still at 2.
Well, I don't know if it's at 2 or not. How do
Wait
you?
till the 1 minute mark comes.
With all the things that you have going on right now, you're still, from what I've picked up, you're still in real estate. Come on, you just finished a book. You run a museum. Like where? Do you watch television? Do you have any time for yourself?
Here's the 1 minute mark.
Oh my gosh! But do you have any time for yourself? Donelle, it's shoes. Like, what do you spend your time? Do you have a hobby outside of all the work you do that you love?
I love to play piano.
Wow, there you go. And have you played piano the whole? Did Jose teach you this?
His sister was my first piano teacher. Isn't that something? Full circle.
That is something. I mean, and you played your whole life. When did you start? When you were 4, 5, 6 years old?
Exactly.
Wow. I played a little bit of the violin. I played since I was
mother was a
5th grade through
violinist.
college, yeah, and play in some weddings and funerals
play
these days.
duets.
I would like that. Donelle, what a pleasure. What an honor. Guys, pick up the Hollywood, from Hollywood to the world, right here. This book is out in stores, right? Everywhere?
And on Amazon too.
And on Amazon.
And Barnes & Noble.
Everywhere. It's going to be a Grammy nominated. And if you haven't been to the Hollywood Museum, you must go there at the Max Factor building. And call Roger, because Roger will give you an update on the next exhibit. And by the way, the Transformers is there right now. You're going to want to see it. And the Abbott and Costello, which I saw. So many wonderful exhibits. Donelle, thank you on behalf of all of Hollywood for bringing back the legend and the sweetness of, I think, everything about Hollywood.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
For appreciating this.
Thank you very much. All right, guys. Please watch us, listen to us on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and right here to see Donelle in person with her fabulous shoes and her unbelievable book. You're going to be wanting to watch our YouTube, and while you're at it, please subscribe to it as well. All right, God bless you guys. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.